What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So we have our Saturday practice that got kicked off, day 11 of training camp for us. We had a lot of things that kind of go on, right? We had a little bit of an injury scare. Aaron Rodgers temporarily went out for a few snaps with a toe injury. I believe Jermaine Johnson had a pressure on him, and then he just kind of went too far, stubbed the toe, but Aaron Rodgers bounced right back. That's why we had Robert Saleh saying in his press conference, refocusing on those efforts to not get anybody injured, even though it was an obvious accident, but still. Pretty scary circumstance, considering, a lot of people are still not necessarily the highest on Zach Wilson and what he may look like as the starter this season. But we came back. We seen him, pretty much throw some touchdowns to Jeremy Ruckert, Allen Lazard in the red zone. So he's still showing an affinity to go out there and make those plays look easy for us in practice. So, we didn't get to see our starting unit. I'd imagine they're much better, right, than what we've seen out of the Hall of Fame game with most of our backups and stuff. But you still have some question marks about necessarily how we may be defending the red zone. We have one of the better weaponries in the NFL, and we have one of the best secondaries, at least at the cornerback position in the NFL. So with Jordan Whitehead making plays, Tony Adams making plays, not necessarily always in the red zone, I'll be interested to see if the Giants' final preseason game of the season, or of the preseason anyways, if we get a tune-up for a lot of the starters, because it'll be nice to kind of see how we do in red zone drills versus some other people. But we do have the Panthers joint practices coming up, so that'll give us our first real indication of kind of how dominant we can actually be, right? Other news, Garrett Wilson, we got the confirmation that he's set to return Tuesday, so he can begin building further on that Aaron Rodgers chemistry, and further proving himself ready to be, hopefully a top 3, top 5 receiver in the NFL this season without a doubt. And realistically, I think he's already there. I mean, we've seen a couple missed touchdowns on tape last season, and if you give him 7 or 8 last year, along with his 1100 plus, I think undoubtedly a lot of people are calling him a top 5 guy already. So for what it's worth, Dwayne Brown, he's a couple weeks away from returning, so that's an interesting timeline, which Robert Saleh kind of spoke to as well, because he won't really have any solid practices under his belt before the regular season kicks off. Also, what does that mean for the tackle competition? Is he pretty much solidified as the starter and everybody else is just kind of fighting for the backup positions and crumbs left over? We'll have to see what that actually means. But in terms of how we expected things to be set up between Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton, that's not going to happen at all. So if Mekhi Becton can stay on the field, maybe he does find a way to secure himself a starting position, but it doesn't appear likely. He played 7 snaps on the offensive line during the Hall of Fame game, and then he played another 4 on special teams later on. So interesting way to try to use him there. But we'll see. Ultimately, I think right now what a lot of us guessed earlier on is true. Dwayne Brown's penciled in as the starter, and we're trying to see if Mekhi Becton can do anything more than just play a series or 2 for us. Xavier Gibson had himself a big play off of play action. He's coming off of that strong return ability that got shown during the Hall of Fame game. He had the muff punt, but then he came right back and gave us a huge kickoff return. So, hopefully he can continue to prove his worth. If he can provide anything significant enough to us in the receiving game, match that up with his return ability, and I think you can make an argument for him to find a role on his roster. Jordan Whitehead, as I mentioned during red zone drills, he actually did make a pretty strong play today. From what I understand, the offense tried to do some kind of trickery. Not sure what that actually entails, but he didn't get fooled. He was able to go and snag himself an interception. So seeing him get his hands on the ball more often is definitely a huge plus, especially if he clears up his tackling miscues. Ashton Davis went and got himself a pass breakup. We've seen Michael Carter II, DJ Reed. They broke up some deep pass plays. Bam Knight had another huge play, a pitch off the right sideline. We got to see Elijah Vera Tucker and Max Mitchell team up for that huge play. So Bam Knight continuing to kind of show some dominance during camp with at least breaking off big plays. A sharp practice from what I heard from Zach Wilson. So I haven't seen any stats, but there's been multiple people, from people sending me tweets and what I've seen from these articles where, Zach Wilson was throwing dots all over, strong red zone period for him. So coming off of that game, I think you are seeing a lot of us expected that what we saw last year was, of course, coaching malpractice, but a lot of it definitely was confidence issues as well. When you can't even do the little things that any quarterback from, JV upward can do, I think you're talking about a guy that's, mentally kind of shattered. So great to hear that he's still flying high off of what he's shown during his preseason debut. And then we did have some sacks from Ifeadi Odenigbo and Deslin Alexander. So we're seeing some of the back end guys in this defensive line rotation show out as well. So I love it. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were about anything that's happened during practice. The injury scare probably being the biggest one for Aaron Rodgers. But I think the good news is, for the most part, we're seeing our top two quarterbacks put in some strong practice performances. Seeing Zach Wilson visibly and mechanically improve in just a short few months from what we saw with the first coaching staff, I think lets you know that our beginning plan, at least once we lost Knapp, was never really going to succeed, and we just didn't have a strong counter option. Probably over believing in some of our young guys, which is, it's not to say they won't be great coaches down the line, but that's a lot to ask when you're talking about the number 2 pick in the NFL. So we'll see how things pan out. Again, let me know what your guys' thoughts were about practice, and I'll catch you again. Peace.